Pete Rock put it in perspective. Supposedly did that beat, the original, the OG version, which we hear. He said Puff came to his crib and he heard that sample. And Pete Rock swears, quote unquote, he swears that he's like, yo, once, I had it playing in the background, I'm a producer, I got beats playing. He said, Puff hears it. He said, the next thing you know, you hear Juicy with that sample, the Mtume. Hey, but anyway, Juicy, the impact of this song is incredible. It's got to be one of the best hip hop songs of all time. It's like the rags to riches story.
Just in case, it kind of went out when you said, who said Pete Rock said he heard the sample and all of a sudden he heard the song Juicy, and right there it kind of cut out.
Oh, no, I was saying like Pete Rock heard, like basically Pete Rock is claiming that Puff stole Juicy from him. The Mtume sample, Puff came to his house to get, I guess a record for Big's album. And, Pete Rock has it playing in the background. And he says, next thing you know, he hears Juicy on the radio. And it's a hit. And, to this day, he said he's not mad, but he just wants his credit. He said Bad Boy tried to offer him to do a remix, but he never did it. That's crazy. I just found that out, bro. Just found that out today.
And that's the song where no matter what, I was talking to Ingrid about that earlier. Like, it didn't take till years later because I would always skip it. Like if I'm listening to the album, I'm listening to Big. I'm not listening to Juicy because we heard it all day long.
Yeah,
it was a single and it was major. So we were listening to the hardcore shit from Big, and even Big Papa, and maybe One More Chance, maybe the remix or one of the remixes. But Juicy was something that I understood the genius of it probably 10, 12 years later when I'm at a bar, I'm in karaoke, and a bunch of white people are singing it. And I'm like, and no matter where you are, it could be a bunch of white people, Indian, Black, Asian, whatever. That song comes on, everybody's in sync. Everybody's in it kind of loosens up the crowd.
Yes.
In a sense, because everybody kind of feels in tune. And it also was one of the songs that me and you spoke about, like Big has that, Pac has Pain for Us, and Nas has Take It in Blood. That I don't know if other artists have this. It's hard to explain, put into words.
Well, I mean, in the line of like a song like Juicy, Pac has Dear Mama, or keep your head up, and I would put Nas, If I Rule the World, in that same line, like that style of song, that single, like it just took him over the top. Like Juicy was, I mean, it's Big's lead single, and it had this old school 80s sample, and it was infectious already from that alone for a lot of people, even though a lot of people didn't like it, and Big didn't want to do it, but that shit was just catchy from the jump. And just the opening lines, like who doesn't know it was all a dream? I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine, hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, Rap Attack, Mr. Magic, Molly Moore. Like if you're a hip hop head and you growing up during that time, I used to buy Right On. Like as a kid, like we had the Right On magazines. You was hanging them pictures on your wall, so you could relate automatically. It's nostalgic. It's already a connection. Like, oh shit, Big is just like me. Like he loves hip hop like how we do. That song it's a rags to riches song, but it's also an ode to hip hop and the love for it. It's the fans' outlook, and then he's a rapper. He's expressing his perspective from it. But it's ill, so because it resonates with so many people to this day. Like, who doesn't know that song? It's a nostalgic song, and that's why it carries weight to this day for me.
But Dear Mama was the record, because when Dear Mama comes on, I can't explain it, but there's no other Big song that makes me feel like that. Like Sky's the Limit is supposed to be that, but it's almost
Pac was he evoked that emotion like no other. Right. That's he's a different Pac in a different, he in the category by himself, to be honest.
But that's his thing. But what I'm saying is Big, when Pac was saying all that shit about, you know, Big stole the style or whatever. I'm like, well, if he did, Juicy is a really good impersonation, and he's really a genius because, like you said, it was all a dream. You feel it, and he's just on point every time he's rapping. His rhythm is crazy. It's just
Yes.
crazy. I made the change from a common thief.
From Up Close and Personal with Robin Leach,
Leech, like the
Far From
way,
Cheap.
oh my, and it's the way his voice sounds.
Yeah.
Again, it's his voice. He was made to do that, and he found it. Juicy was like, we heard it in Flavor in Your Ear, and we heard it like that's when Juicy came out. It was like, and it was August 1994 that it came out.
Yeah.
It's still, you can hear it if you pay attention to it. The kids now, of course, it might sound like it's old school to them, but it crossed a couple generations, that song.
Absolutely.
So like I said, I didn't appreciate it until it kind of like escaped its rotation on the radio, obviously. And 10 years later, it's like, I'm glad, you know, that we got to experience it. It was,
Yes.
I hope these kids have songs like that, because it all sounds.
Yeah, they got, I mean, they probably do. I mean, yo, this generation of kids, they love Dreams and Nightmares by Meek Mill. Like that's their Juicy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, that's true.
yeah. But I one more thing I would say about Juicy, man. Like that was the hood Cinderfella. Like I know Dana Day had the Cinderfella shit, but Juicy was that. It was like a Cinderella story. Like Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. When I was dead broke, man, I couldn't picture this. Like you went from not having it from the haves to have not. You know what I mean? From the have nots to the haves, and I love that song, man. It could be tiring, but for hip hop's sake, it's a classic. It's got to be for me top 10 hip hop song of all time. Got to give credit to Juicy. Yeah.
Top 5?
No, top 10. Top 10,
10.
somewhere in the top 10 of hip hop songs. Like, who doesn't? Like you said earlier, Juicy is universal. Like, I don't care who you are. Like, even if you really don't know Big's catalog, you know Juicy. You know Alana too.